Hello, it's Taylor Silfverduk, registered dietitian specializing in celiac disease, and today we're going to be talking about avoiding gluten at barbecues. If you're new here, I am a celiac specialized registered dietitian. I've been living with celiac for over 10 years, and I have attended my fair share of barbecues. And with the weather getting warmer, the sun coming out, it getting hot, people are busting out their grills, and I have already received quite a few barbecue invitations. Luckily, I've got a lot of friends and family who know how to keep me safe and are willing to take those steps. But today I want to talk to you about avoiding gluten at barbecues, and if you are starting to get those barbecue invitations in the United States, some of the things that you want to keep your eye out for that might be shocking and could potentially contain gluten, and also some things to consider when it comes to staying safe from cross contact. This is not going to be a all-inclusive and all-encompassing guide to attending barbecues, because I would need like an entire class to teach you that. But hopefully these are some tips that are helpful, and hopefully this is a helpful starting place, if you will. So that said, let's get into avoiding gluten at barbecues. So first I want to cover a couple of things that might shock you that contain gluten. So the first thing is mustard. I don't know if you ever come across a mustard with gluten, but I felt like I went several years without seeing gluten in mustard, and then I found it. I had a few clients come to me saying they were shocked and found gluten in their mustard, and suddenly like it was like in a bunch of mustards. It's for the most part, most mustard does not contain gluten. But then like suddenly I came across all these mustards that did. So this is an example of one that does. You'll see here it says it has wheat flour. Hopefully you can read that. Again, most mustard is gluten-free, but this one has wheat flour, so always check the ingredients of everything that has a label when it comes to the barbecue. But mustard is also one of those things you might be shocked by, so don't skip it. Make sure you're checking it. The next one is barbecue sauce, and I feel like I went through a period of time where every barbecue sauce I picked up was gluten-free, and then suddenly, bam, I found one that wasn't. And I feel like this is one of those things where like everyone's like, check your barbecue sauce, and I just never came across a barbecue sauce with gluten until I did. And I kind of feel like it's like when you're looking for it, you never find it, but then like when you aren't looking for gluten in something, boom, it sneaks up on you. It's kind of what happened to me with barbecue sauce. So most barbecue sauce that I've come across is gluten-free in the United States, but it can contain gluten, and I found some that does contain gluten, either in the form of like soy sauce or a thickener like wheat flour, or natural flavors. And natural flavors, a side note on natural flavors, they're not always unsafe. There's a small chance that they could hide gluten, so that's why you want to check on them if you see them in a product that is not marked gluten-free. If you feel like you aren't sure how to read a food label, or you're not fully sure what you're looking for on a food label, or you feel like there's just like a lot of like questions that you have around it and you generally get confused, or you feel like it takes you a really long time to figure out if something is safe, or you feel like you're just kind of stuck buying things that are marked gluten-free because you don't know what to look for, I've got a totally free class, totally free, that you can take and watch literally right now if you want to. That'll teach you how to identify gluten on a food label in 4 simple steps in the United States. Again, it's taught by me, a celiac dietitian. That'll help make this that much simpler. So if you're someone who feels like you could really benefit from strengthening your label reading skills, if a dietitian never taught you how to read a food label for staying gluten-free, that kind of thing, if you need this help, I'm confident this class is really going to change your life when it comes to making sure your food is gluten-free when you're buying it from grocery stores in the United States. I'll leave that link down below if you need that help. But that aside, barbecue sauce is one of those things that you want to make sure you're checking, because it's always gluten-free until suddenly it's not. So make sure you're always checking the label, again, of everything that's at the barbecue, but barbecue sauce is one of those things you definitely want to keep your eye on. The next thing are chips. I feel like this might be a little bit more obvious, but sometimes it can sneak up on you. I've seen malt, especially in chips that don't seemingly have malt in it. This is a really obvious example of malt vinegar chips, but I've seen it in other things. So just make sure you're checking. Also with chips, I've also seen gluten hide in the form of yeast extract. Again, if you're not sure what to look for on a food label, you're not sure what the ingredients can or can't hide gluten, please, please, please watch that free class link down below. But chips are also one of those things you're going to want to keep your eye on. Finally, dips are the other thing you're going to want to keep your eye on. And going back to chips, dips also kind of fall into this category, but with chips, cross contact also can be an issue, especially if it's kind of like a chip bag that's left open and people are just like reaching in. You either want to be the first person who's reaching into that bag, or you want to make sure they are dumping those chips out of the bag properly, or they're using tongs, or if it's like a chip bowl, try to see if you can get chips from the chip bag so you know that they're safe. But chips can be also a point of cross contact, especially with hands. Dip also can be a point of cross contact, so not only can it potentially hide gluten in the ingredients, so make sure you're checking the ingredients. This is an example of a dip that does contain gluten, but also with cross contact. So like, for example, say you had this out with some pita chips and some vegetables, and someone just like dipped their pita chip straight into that dip, that is now contaminated from cross contact. So you want to keep your eye on that, and you're making sure that either the way that this food is served is preventing cross contact, or everyone is aware of how to prevent cross contact, or you're having a separate dip, or that separate dip has already been put aside before the general people who are attending the barbecue got to the dip. There's a lot of ways to manage cross contact at a barbecue. Like I said, I can't possibly cover them all in this one video, but it is something to keep your eye on. And then finally, like I mentioned, don't forget to watch out for cross contact. There are a lot of ways that it can show up at a barbecue, so make sure that you are keeping your eye on that. So I talked about chips and people potentially putting their hands in there that have like touched a hamburger bun, or maybe like they've touched a cracker or something like that, and then into the chip bag. That chip bag's now contaminated. But also dips could also be contaminated, and I think the other bigger one too is grills. Grills are also another bigger issue, and they're kind of like the main event at a barbecue, so it's important you're keeping your eye on that. A couple of things you can do with a grill: if it is a one-tier grill, so it's only got one kind of like layer, then you could potentially get a grill mat and put that down. That is a more eco-friendly route because you can reuse grill mats, and that creates a barrier between the grill, so if the grill is contaminated, your food is staying safe. If it's two-tiered, then you want to make sure that your food is on the top tier. If you don't have a grill mat, you can also use foil. That can also help create a barrier. Again, if it's a two-tier grill, make sure your food's on the top. There are a lot of other things that you're going to want to consider, like utensils and how they're preventing cross contact, and all of the steps of preparing your food, but it's not to say that it's not impossible. And if you're looking for help, if you're looking for things that are clear and concise on how to manage cross contact at these events and in general, I've got some resources linked down below that can also help you. But I hope that this was kind of a helpful starting place and kind of opening your eyes on what to keep your eye on and what to start paying attention to. Again, this is not all inclusive, but hopefully a really helpful starting point. If you found any of this surprising or helpful, go ahead and hit the like button. If you want more videos from a celiac dietitian, you want more help, go ahead and subscribe. And with that, my name is Taylor, registered dietitian specializing in celiac disease, who's also been living with celiac for over 10 years. I hope you found this helpful, and I will see you in the next one.